Everybody, welcome. My name is Ronnie Rios, and I am so very honored to be here with you guys today. The Conn-Selmer Institute has put together this incredible event, and hopefully you guys have been able to check out some of the other events, and we'll be able to hear before these sessions are over. I want to start off with a video and to tell everybody that this is not the way to train if you want to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. Okay, so everyone, absolutely not the way that you want to train if you want to be the next heavyweight champion of the world. I think he got 3 punches in there in actual rhythm with the music, but other than that, absolutely not. So my first question to everybody, or my first concern to share with you, is the jazz ensemble, this group that you're about to get involved with. Is this an added assignment for you? Is this something you're dreading or that you're inheriting? Or is this something that you have actually been looking forward to where you're all in? So very, very important, because the kids see this. The kids actually, let me get this PowerPoint started here, and the kids can see this vibe. Or is this something, like I said, that you're all in and you just can't wait to get started? And this is kind of how I approached the jazz ensemble. It was something that I was looking forward to so very much. The kids can see every ounce of how your eyes look when you're in front of them, and how your voice, your fluctuations of your voice. So very important. Are you in at compliance, or are you in at commitment? There's a big difference, and the students will perform, and the students will react according to where you're at and what level you're at. So I want to start off with talking about scheduling, because it's so very important. If you are lucky enough to have jazz ensemble during the school day, mix it up with sectionals, mix it up with an applied music concept, and of course some full ensemble rehearsals, maybe some guests, maybe some other band directors from the district or across town, some musicians, and also some improv. If it's after school, are you going to be consistent with that schedule? Are you going to be insistent that your performers show up for that? Do you cancel a lot? All of these things are very, very important, because if like the best days that I have found when I started off with a middle school jazz ensemble, Wednesday afternoons, actually for middle school was Friday afternoons, and I said that backwards. Best days, Fridays were for middle school, and then high school were Wednesdays. Those were the best days if you don't have it actually in the schedule. So think about that. And if you're only doing it, I know in the fall can be busy with marching band and other activities, but if you're only meeting jazz 4 hours a month and you skip a rehearsal or 2, you're cutting your hours down that you have with this activity, and the chances of you being successful and your students being successful may not be that great. So very important that you are consistent and insistent with those rehearsals. You always want to start with sectionals first. There's just too many challenges in a full ensemble. Can you get it done in a full ensemble early? Yes, especially if you have years of experience and you know how to speed up and accelerate the learning curve and cut the fat off maybe some curriculum that you don't need. But you always want to start in sectionals, because there's too many challenges at once. Also, you never want to rehearse more than the parent group does. Even if it's just 10 minutes less, it's okay. You just don't want to get in the habit where the jazz ensemble is rehearsing more than the parent group, like the symphonic band or the concert band or whatever it's called on your campus. You want to be a true team player with your jazz ensemble and support that parent group. Now, once you say yes, that you're going to actually take on the jazz ensemble, you cannot change your mind. You have to go the entire year, the 9 months of school or 10, with that activity. Don't change your mind. It's very important. because if you do change your mind and you cut after 3 or 4 months because of attendance or weird stuff or whatever, you have to start at ground zero the following year, or somebody else has to start at ground zero. Once you commit to doing this, follow through. Those of you that don't have it in the class day. And finally here, share your schedule with your head director if it's not you. And also you want to share what your MO is, like your what your objectives are out of the group, what you want to get out of the ensemble. You always want to share that with your head director. In terms of equipment and inventory, you have to have your students be set up for success. And that is your responsibility. You have to set your students up for success. So some of the proper equipment that you need, you have to go find an acoustic piano. Usually it's that butterscotch looking or color of a piano that may exist in the choir hall. You want to work out, take the choir director out to lunch, or bring them a fruit basket or something, or ask them if you can borrow that, and always agree to pay for the tuning, because the more that instrument moves from music room to music room, the tuning gets affected. So pay for the tuning. If you don't have one of those upright butterscotch acoustic pianos, then an electronic piano is okay too, just as long as it has 88 keys. And because when you get out and perform, your piano players are going to be used to that touch, and that's maybe what they have at home also. And I found that it's also really cool to have them perform that instrument on a bass amp, because it gives it a more robust sonorous tone on that amplifier. Make sure that you hear your piano during rehearsal. Very important. I've seen a lot of jazz rehearsals where piano players will play in rehearsal, but you'll never hear them. So just have a small microphone pointed in, to the soundboard. That's the back of that upright piano, and a small amp, and doesn't have to be high quality, but just so that you can hear it in rehearsal, because things will get a little complicated, especially if you have a guitarist. So the piano player is very important, and you can put that student in charge of setting it up and then rolling it back and whatnot. You don't have to do all this work for your students. You got to remember, a master teacher never works harder than his or her students. You always have assignments for students to help out with stuff like that. So if you're doing all the work, you may want to rethink how you do that. A general rule also for piano is you don't want to comp at the same time as your guitarist. You have your guitar player learn the melodies of the songs, or comp on big tutti moments or for effects or whatnot, because you definitely don't want to clash. If it's free comping with the guitarist and the piano, they will clash rhythms, or somebody may have a tone in there that clashes with what each other is doing. So very important that they're not trying to free comp at the same time and just kind of work it out. You play from A to B, and then you play from C to D or whatnot, just to give the tune different colors as well. And speaking of guitars and amps, you always want to try to encourage your performer to get their own hollow body guitar. Have them fall in love with that instrument. It makes a beautiful sonorous sound. They're not very expensive either. If the school can purchase one, then keep it under lock and key, and then put that under lock and key, and then lock and key. Because speaking out of experience, kids love those a little too much sometimes. So also your bass guitars, if you can get an upright bass, that's awesome. Somebody from the orchestra, if you don't have an orchestra program, maybe somebody can start to learn to play the acoustic bass if you can get one in your band hall somehow. Your guitar amp, your bass player will use a bass amp. Your guitar player can use an amp, a 40 watt amp. 12-inch speakers are usually the best for your guitar players. You don't want stacks and stacks of like a rock concert in the 80s of amps from your guitarist. It's a color of sound that you're looking for, so very important. The bass player will be in, both of the guitar performers will be in charge of their volumes. Make sure they set up their instruments in front of the amps so they can turn and put it in a neutral position, and then they can do at the performances and rehearsals everything from their guitar here in front of them, not turning around. But it should be set up because they need to hear themselves. The bigger the hall for your performances, then you will have to add more treble on your bass amp. And they're just starting out with jazz ensemble. What I'm talking about will save you years of just not so good performances, not so good rehearsals, So what I'm trying to give, the information I'm giving you will absolutely help you and get you above the curve, or way ahead of the curve a lot faster. So the bigger the hall, you absolutely want to add more treble to that bass amp sound so that it's not real muddy sounding in your halls. And also, when you're looking for bass players, got to make sure, everybody, that you understand that's a very important position. That is actually your bus driver. Do you want your bus driver to be alert, to be courteous, to be kind, to follow all the rules? Yes, that's what you want your bass player to do. You want somebody that's doing really well in their academic classes. You want somebody that completes assignments, that is a good student, because that person is the bus driver. Get them to memorize their music if they can. Usually they can. They can use it for reference. They don't have to perform without it or rehearse without it, but just for reference. You want them to get off that page and concentrate on time and accenting on beats 2 and 4 on a swing chart and so forth. If what I have also seen through time are bass players that get music where it's just chord symbols written out. It's not actual notes. I don't know if you guys have seen that in the past. If you haven't, you will, especially as the charts become more sophisticated. You always want to get those bass parts written out, because sometimes the bass player is, there's not an AP theory class available at that campus, or the bass player is a very good technician, but they don't understand all the theory yet. So if you allow them freedom to write their own bass part, they may write some tones in there that are not that great in the key you're in, or they may go off into a different key for 4 bars, 2 bars, or whatnot, and clash harmonically with what's happening in the horn line and the keyboard guitar player. So very important you write that out. Okay, drum set. And you guys are wondering why I'm starting off with rhythm section, is because the more I go out and the more I are able to hear jazz ensembles, and when friends call me to hear their groups, rhythm section seems to be the one that is the Achilles heel or the kryptonite for those directors, because maybe they weren't just around it enough in high school or college. They got a degree in something else, not in rhythm section instruments. So this is why I wanted to start with this. Very important. Moving to the drum set now. Everybody, here's my rule for drum set. Less is better. You want to try to encourage your school to purchase or the student to purchase for Christmas present or whatnot. The fewer pieces, the better. A 4-piece jazz kit is ideal for this activity, for the big band. A 4-piece jazz kit, 3 cymbals, that includes the hi-hat. And these are some of my general rules for drum set. So for swing music, and this is what I tell my young percussion, my drummers, is if the song is swing, Billy, I want to hear more cymbals. You want to hear more metallic sounds. If it's a Latin song, then you want to hear the membrane, the drum. Those are kind of 2 of my rules that I use that I've kind of learned through time. You don't want to play those. You don't want the opposite of that. That could be a real problem. The hi-hat is always going to be that metronome all the time, where that bass player, the bus driver, fits right into that metronome. But the hi-hat has to be a metronome. And sometimes I've seen where the actual drummer has a metronome right next to him or her and will be in control of it in rehearsal and just make sure that they're clicking with that metronome the entire time. For swing music, again, one of the biggest problems with drum sets is the bass drum is too heavy. It's almost like you want to take that bass drum pedal and you want to hide it for a couple of months until the student develops a good sense of tone with that right cymbal, the hi-hat, and then later on maybe add the bass drum for effect, because nothing worse than having boom, 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 ba-boom, 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 over and over for the whole chart, where that bass drum just kicks in on a swing tune. That's just not how it works. That's not how that style is supposed to be represented. So if you're not a percussionist like I'm not, and you're just kind of learning as you go, I think the best thing is to try to find a local pro, or to find somebody on the staff, or a staff across the district or across the town or even across the zip code. They can come in and help out. They're always more than happy to. For some reason, the drummers, they always want to work with other drummers, and especially kids. So if you can get somebody that knows that style, that can come and teach your students the different styles of music that you're going to play for that season, or to do lessons on their own, it's up to that student and the parent. the better. So always try to get somebody local that you can do to help with percussion. I do have some percussion sets here, like entry level. This is a good one here. This drum set, it's a little, it's a little over $400, the Ludwig set. And then for the intermediate, like a good high school, it's $700 right here will get you this 4-piece ebony stain here, the PDP. Or if you're lucky enough to be able to get the set of your dreams, this is it right here, the DW, the advanced level is $3,200. And, this is the instrument that sounds amazing. So, we'll leave it up to you and you can go from there. Next thing I want to talk about is Latin percussion. And I don't want to take it too deep of a dive in that, but for Latin percussion, if you only have one other student available in the rhythm section to play percussion, congas is the winner. Congas is the heart. The students have a good concept of sound, high school level. I know middle school, depending on how often you see these kids. If you have a jazz class in mid school and you have some advanced performers, or high school, they have a good concept of sound, consider going with the hard rubber mouthpieces. I love the Meyer series, but the standard classical saxophone mouthpieces in jazz just won't get you that sound, that saxophone front row sound that you're looking for. So very important that you consider the hard rubber mouthpieces. Like I said, I love Meyer. And after the student has a good concept of tone, or else it may just be a nightmare, and work with them and work with the parents, because the last thing you want is all these saxophone players buying stuff on the internet blindly, and they're showing up with metal mouthpieces, and all of a sudden your ears are ringing. You want to still produce good tones and good styles, because there's really not a magical mouthpiece. It depends on the performer. So sometimes they may have to buy 1 or 2 or 3 before they find the one. Oh, that's the perfect sound right there. So be very careful with that. Maybe a little softer reed for those mouthpieces as well. For brass, no change needed in terms of mouthpieces. The same ones they use for their symphonic class, they can use for jazz ensemble. You're wanting those rich, sonorous brass tones. And then I talk about some identity fronts here. Have a thumbprint so everybody knows who you are when you go perform. The company that I use for mine is called MB, EM-BEE. And they can design your own. And you can have an identity, and everybody will know who you are when you go perform, and it's a cool thing, and kids love it as well. So very important. Number of performers and position of your ensemble. The instrumentation, you want to keep it standard, everybody. No weirdness if possible. If you have all those woodwinds, like I would have flutes and clarinets, that would want to join the jazz ensemble, that's fine. You got to limit it, though. I know you got a lot of great kids in your program. But the woodwinds, they go in row 1. That's where the woodwinds belong, in row 1. I've seen a few times where a clarinet's in row 3 with the trumpet section, or a bass clarinet in the trombone section, and it's just not the sound you need. They need to be playing those reed parts if you want to rewrite some of those saxophone parts or whatnot. Now, yes, you want to provide opportunities to those kids too, but you're on a clock. You have to get a band ready in a certain amount of time, so you can focus on those students in your regular symphonic classes. Tuba players also can be members of your jazz ensemble. If you're at a mid school, sometimes those tuba players can't really play the 4th trombone part or the 3rd trombone part. You may have to redo the octave, or just save them for certain parts. The more sophisticated the jazz arrangement, there's a bass bone part. If you don't have a bass bone, a tuba's okay. But you definitely don't want the tuba just playing a 3rd or 4th trombone part the entire song, because sometimes it muddies up the harmony in that row 2 with your trombone section. So you can just leave your tuba for certain moments in the arrangement, like the hits, the big moments, the tutti moments, or a softer chord at the end or whatnot for effect. Your tuba player won't mind, trust me. They're just happy to be there. You definitely don't want the tuba player to copy the bass part. I don't know. I've heard a kid, a student, lots of times try to play the electric bass part on a tuba, and I have never heard that go well for that kid. It's just 700 notes, in 2 pages. Poor kid. And usually they play them all choppy and staccato. So we're going to get into that in just a second about style. So you definitely don't want any tricks, from that tuba player. Here is the diagram of how I think a good setup should be. You have your saxophones, your brass set up. The rhythm section, what I see when I go out and hear jazz ensembles is I see that there's a huge disconnect from the rhythm section to the horn line. You don't want any kind of weirdness or tricks or anything with that rhythm section. Notice how I put the drum set performer very close to the trombone section. I actually tell that person, and I joke with them all the time, is I let them know, I say, hey, you're going to be 6-chair trombone. Because nobody's going to want to give up their chair, right? Even the 5th-chair trombone is not going to want to give up their chair order. So you're 6-chair trombone. So you're going to be set up in the trombone section as if you're sitting right next to those guys all the time. That's real important. Mostly what I see is if you look at the piano, I'll see the drum set behind the piano and further to his right, the director's left. So even further away from the horn line. So it's real important the drummer is right there because they got to kick the band, they got to set up the band, play unison rhythms here and there with the ensemble. Latin percussion behind. The bass player is actually a little further back than where it's drawn on this illustration. Where you see the instrument, that's where the student stands, and then the instrument, the amp, is right behind the student. The piano player is right there, good guitar, and so there's no weirdness. I just see a lot of rhythm sections that are, it's so far away from the horn line. It's just, it's kind of awkward at times. So let's move on here to talk about using the setup and using your positions, how your saxophones are sitting in the ensemble and how your brass players are sitting or standing in your jazz ensemble to always promote posture as well. Good posture, tall postures. Even if they're sitting down, they got to stay tall. Also correct hand position. And you don't want any tension from your performers at all because the sound can be more sonorous. Band directors, audiences, judges, musicians love sonorous resonant sounds. They love it. I love them. So I always talk about hamburger hands, where you're holding a hamburger with no tension. You're holding 2 hamburgers where there's just no tension. You're not going to squeeze a hamburger. So you're holding the instruments real chilled out so that you can try to create sonorous sounds, let the air do the work, the face is, chilled out and whatnot. And so that, and they can also transfer that to their symphonic class too. So very, very important with that. Ensemble rules, everybody. I wanted to talk to you really quickly about with ensemble rules. I always start my performers, especially at the beginning of the season or the beginning of the school year or beginning of the clinic, if it's a two-day clinic like a region band or an all-star band, playing with full sounds to begin with, full sonorous sounds at the beginning. It's like David, that sculpture. It was a piece of marble or whatever it was. And there it was, this big mass, and then they just started chipping away, and then they got the sound they wanted. So you got to play with a full sound, a sonorous sound at the beginning. And then eventually within your section, you want the lead performer on top. So I talk about balance with my hornline students. And this is, I actually draw this on the board, is where I want the second, third, fourth, and fifth part player, or the second alto, tenor, bari, to play exactly the same energy. So if you think of the square footage in those squares, exactly the same, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then the square footage in 1, the first part performer, will be just a little bit bigger. So eventually you want the first performer, the lead player, just a little bit stronger than 2, 3, 4, and 5 to lead that section, especially the lead trumpet. That lead trumpet, you have a good lead trumpet, you have a good drummer, you're probably having a above average jazz ensemble. Those 2 performers, you got like a LeBron James on each one of those, you're going to be doing great. So you always want that lead trumpet on top, the lead bone, and the lead alto. That's why I talked to you about the mouthpiece, for your alto player. Can't really be a classical instrument. It's got to be, hard rubber, whatever you choose. Also, I didn't mention this, but with the trombone, I have seen where trombone performers in row 2, the lead trombone, the first trombone player, has a trigger instrument. That is not your best answer. You should always have that lead trombone player with a pea shooter all the time. It's just way too much work to get his sound or her sound to zip through that trombone section. You need that pea shooter where it's a lot easier so they can still make sonorous tones and play with beauty and resonance on that instrument. So this is the balance that I try to get to when, after, a few rehearsals, a few weeks and so forth, to try to get the balance that we need. Okay, in your ensemble, performers have to learn how to match sound energies. I actually learned this from Wynton Marsalis. I saw him do a saxophone sectional at the Midwest Clinic a few years back. And he was working with the saxophones, and you could hear that like the second tenor or one of the saxophones wasn't really up to par, didn't have the same hustle in terms of sound that the others had. So it kind of distorted the harmonic vocabulary, and it just, it kind of affected the balance. So everybody's got to match sound energies. And this is great. This is a great thing because it's improving every performer. Also, in your tunes, it should not be a chorale blend, everybody. You got to keep the songs tuneful. In other words, you've got to hear the melody. You've got to hear the instrument colors, the chords. You got to adjust the balance to do this. I also learned this from Wynton. Most bands on the bandstand play too loud. It can't be a free-for-all. Rhythm section, give me all you got. Sax is all you got. Trombones, trumpets, all you got. No, you have to adjust the balance once you're getting into your tunes where it's tuneful, where you can hear the melodies and whatnot. So the strongest section in the ensemble cannot dictate the balance of your group. Very important right there. Just because all the trombones were all region or all star, they can't be the loudest section in the band. You got to hear saxophone melody and trumpet brilliance on the tooties. Get organized, know the score, know that tune, and especially know the style. So what I wanted to show everyone here is just a demonstration. This is called the Cardinal Shuffle by Bob Washut, and the publisher is Kendor. We wanted to play a recording, but for the purpose of time and so forth, we're going to just have this available for you, I think, in the chat box, or it may be emailed to you at a certain time. But if you'll notice right here at Pick Up to 29, it's a swing tune. It's a shuffle. So it's a little bit it's a little heavier of a swing tune. But you'll notice that the brasses are in unison, Pick Up to 29, and the saxophones are in, let's see, are they in harmony here? Yes. So you'll see that the rhythm section is playing a shuffle, which is a heavier swing. The brass, you have all 8 brass or 9 or 10, however many in your section, are in unison. So right off the bat, you're like, okay, this is going to be maybe not, it'll be out of balance because, you got 10 big brass instruments and 5 saxophones playing in harmony, where it's out of balance. So if you listen to the recording that you'll get later, you can YouTube this, you'll hear that it's perfect balance because the publisher got a group and they mixed it and it's perfect balance. But organically, or in your band room, you have to do this by teaching performers how to listen to the other sections to keep it tuneful. So, and this is also, I wanted to show you this is because when I did this chart, I actually started right there at 29. Once they kind of did a few sectionals and whatnot, I always start with the big tutti moments or the hook of the chart so that everybody's involved right away. And you'll see that everybody's here involved right away. And it goes all the way to the solo section here at 45. So very important that you get all the kids involved right away when you're first at the very, first starts of your big band rehearsals. You always want to have your students sing their parts a lot, hit a body part while they're singing, because having a good sense of time, everyone, and having is your foundation for success. You want to direct as much as you can, and you want to conduct as little as you can. You don't want to be one of those, the most important thing is the information and the reaction that you're providing for your students. That is the most important component. Okay, so we're getting to the end of the session here. We're going to have some Q&A in just a second. In terms of literature, this is some of the greatest music you will ever hear is jazz music. Love it, love it. I know that there's tons of method books out there. There's actually some state adopted texts probably available for your school that are free that you can use. You can also use audition etudes. I use that. I actually use the tunes and the audition etudes more for my students because of just the clock I'm on, because I involve applied music during the class and practice time and sectionals and whatnot, because I want them to be better players as well. It's just not big band all the time. There's sectionals involved and so forth. More so than I use a book. In terms of arrangements, there is no really prescribed list for arrangement. So this is good and bad because you don't have a reference as to what maybe somebody cleaned up for you and picked all the best charts. So for young directors, I've seen that they pick too hard of arrangements. So maybe some weird arrangements sometimes. You got to be realistic. Usually the music is too hard that I see, over programming, and where the arrangement didn't fit kind of the players that you had. You know, if you have no one, if you're basketball and you have no one that can shoot the 3-point shot real far away, yet you design an offense where everybody shoots 3-point shots, may not be the best way to win games. You know, so you want to find the music that's realistic, that fits your group. So I use the Millionaire game. Everybody see that? Jimmy Kimmel's on with Millionaire. There's phone a friend, ask the audience or the host for him, or take out the 2 bad answers. So use that rule where you're calling people and you have a mentor always. Everybody needs to have a teacher. Even I have my own personal board of directors with my teachers that I refer to. So very important you do that. Visit your favorite sites. Everybody has recordings now, and they all have samples of the score. When I first started doing this, I remember emailing or writing letters to the publishers to send me CDs, if y'all remember that, or cassette tapes. So now everything's online. So I do have some of my favorite arrangers and composers down here for you guys to kind of check out. Bob Mincer is one of my all-time favorite. I've actually had him sit in with my group in Chicago before. And all of these are really good. There's lots of others, but these are just some of my favorites that come to mind. But you want to make sure that you make the chart fit. And one other thing I can tell you is I don't think I've ever taken a chart, even Bob Mincer's, when I played Elvin's Mambo by Bob Mincer, I didn't play it from front to back exactly the way Bob wrote it. And I changed the ending. And when we got to the ending, I looked at him. He was on stage next to me. And he kind of gave me a head nod. Hey, that was pretty cool. So I do cuts. You don't want to take away the integrity of the tune, but you want to make sure that it fits with what you have in front of you and the clock you have, because you want to make sure this tune sounds good. So it's a good experience for your kids and, of course, for the audience as well. So improv real quick, everyone. I can tell you that this is a new improv it's a new language for a lot of people, and I think that the improv and the style that I'm going to talk to you about here at the end is something that really makes a difference between an average ensemble and just an incredible above average ensemble. You want to encourage everybody to improvise, but you want to feature those that excel. You work with those students privately. Don't try to teach improv to the entire 20-piece ensemble every day or whatever you're doing, especially if it's mid-school or high school, especially mid-school. I don't think I ever taught improv in front of anyone, during the middle school jazz ensemble sessions. You want to work with them privately. Teaching improv is not always wise to the group, because even if you go to a professional big band concert, not all 20 people will improvise. Maybe 10, maybe 7, maybe 6. I saw Count Basie live a few months ago here in Harlingen, Texas at our Performing Arts Center. And I think maybe there's 20 people or 19. I think I heard 9 solos at the most. So you want to work with those privately that are showing promise. You can build confidence by using written solos. If you can get somebody to write you out some great solos. And what I first started doing is I would have students learn a blues scale in B flat, 7 notes, or in F, or whatever it was, a blues scale in a different key, or in G. And then I would warm up with the students that weren't soloing playing whole notes, or the rhythm section playing the blues changes. It's just 3 chords. And then I would have the students solo using that one blues scale over a 12-bar blues in the key of B flat or in the key of F. Very simple. You don't even need music for this. And the students would just play the tonic of each chord. There's only 3 chords. So there's only 3 possible notes for the non-soloist. And I would do that all the time. Or you can also teach a chord or a scale on a chord progression through a musical line and develop that musical line for the beginning stages of soloing, how to teach students creativity and so forth. So for styling, I can tell you, everybody, this is a new language. And sometimes, like how you learned how to drive, how you learned how to speak, we all learned by copycatting somebody. You've got to listen to it because students don't have jazz music in their phones that much. They don't have it. So you got to get them to listen to it, including the teacher too. Sometimes I'm talking to myself. We got to listen to it. So I can tell you that this tune was one of the openers I did at TMEA a year ago or so. I want you to listen to it here. And I actually put words with a melody to have students sing along to this. Okay, so that was just an example of the great Count Basie Orchestra. Can't Stop Loving You. And I can tell you, if you're not hearing those types of sounds in your band room, or the kids don't have that on their phone, it's hard to copycat that, because that's how we learned how to drive. That's how we learned how to talk, is by copycatting somebody. So we have to listen, or we have to copycat some language. This is a new language for us. So very important, if you really want to get to styling as much as you can, then you want, let's see, where is that PowerPoint at here? Looking for the slides again. Let's see. Everyone stay with me, please. Stay with me. Getting back to my slides. Oh, here we go. Okay. So with styling, your rhythm section tones have to be legit, everybody. Where, like I said, maybe get a local pro to help out, get role models and recordings. Copycat, like I said, it's a new language. Rhythm section is probably the most Achilles heel or kryptonite for people, but you can do this without even being a rhythm section player. Make a few calls, get a few people to come in and listen to the sounds, so forth. Warm up with different styles. What I did is I would pick a program like 5-6 tunes, and the style of each tune, I would warm up on those styles. Not necessarily the chart. I would wait for the chart because I wanted to work on fundamentals of sound and balance and postures, like I talked to you about, hamburger hands. But I wanted the rhythm section to play the style so they can master it quicker, because your rhythm section has to play as a unit with a good balanced sound to the horn line. So I'd warm up with those just whole note scales, like a Dorian scale, flat to 7th, go up to the 9th on a major scale, just whole tones or double whole tones while the rhythm section is playing the style. The kids loved it. Also, work in the swing. This is not easy. It's not going to happen overnight, but it's an acquired skill you can get. Just don't give up. It's legato. If you'll just remember everything jazz, here's one of the most important things of the day. It's a legato expression. I also learned that from Winton. People play music too choppy today. You got to just slur everything. I think I told a band once that slur everything. I'll tell you where to tongue later. Just slur everything. And later on, I would give them like the top notes of where to tongue and where to articulate and so forth. Like at the top of the phrase, you can tongue again. And I'd even play whole notes, ooh, va, ooh, va, ooh, va, ooh, va, putting emphasis on 2 and 4. And later that would be emphasis on the upbeats, because bands play too choppy. You got to play everything slurred. So just as a general rule, again, for ballads, all the 8th notes will be straight unless it's an actual jazz ballad, then you can swing it. For funk music, straight 8th notes, just don't play choppy. Latin music, straight 8th notes, just don't play choppy. This is one of the secret ingredients. I learned this from Denny de Blasio. He's a Barry player for the great Maynard Ferguson Big Band. And I've had him fortunate enough to work with my students and sit in with my band a couple of times. And I can tell you, I learned this from him. He said, man, there was this middle school jazz band that just played with the most incredible style all the time. And I asked the director what he did. He said, it's my secret ingredient. He would have his kids listen to the tune, and then he would have his students position along with the tune, and then he would have the students play along with the tune, and then he would repeat it Go listen to it again the next day, position along, and then play along with it. So that's how they got that style really, to shine. So very important. Just before we go to Q&A, everybody, I want to end by letting you know that go perform with your groups and perform fearlessly. Go sign up for a convention, or go to Midwest, or go to your MEA in your state, or play at a PTA. Just get your kids out there. They love, your jazz kids will love this. I'm telling you, the band program I was at may have been a different level if I didn't have a jazz ensemble. The jazz ensemble brought great technique in the four walls of the band hall. It brought great enthusiasm, practice habits, creative skills, everything a band program needs to get to the next level. Without it, I don't think my band program would have ever gotten to where it's at. So let your bosses know you have a group available to perform. Work the PR. Be one of the great things in your district or in your community. Go to a festival. Kids can see, they can hear others, maybe even hear a professional musician that night or that afternoon. They can win a contest. That'll give them tons of confidence. It's a great feeling when they get recognized, especially the outstanding soloists and so forth. Great feeling to meet kids on a Saturday morning in a band hall, and take them out to a festival in a nearby town, go out to the hamburger place or a pizza place at night. It's a great thing. Dress great, look professional, create an entertainment value and appeal in all your concerts, guys. Invite guests. I did visuals in some of my concerts. I actually did visuals, even at TMEA, like 8 counts, 16 counts, where there was a little move or a horn pop or something, some kind of visual thing that's not cheesy or nerdy, but that looks authentic. Count Basie does that too. So invite guests, get professionals to sit in, get the mayor to come say something before your last song, the superintendent to say something, anyone that can give positive karma to your audience that you perform at. And then always talk to the audience. You hear clapping, turn around and bow or wave. And at the end of each tune, you don't want to go this big, huge dissertation, but it's good, to introduce the next song or who the solos were. And then maybe the last song of your concert, have the rhythm section play a groove and introduce the band. The kids always love that. So I want to go to the chat now, everybody. And I know I've been talking a lot. I apologize. We have, let's see, Monica. Let's see, you are asking about, let's see, I do this before Christmas. Oh, okay, she's making a comment here. I don't know if we're going to be able to get to everybody's, but I'm going to try to get to as many as possible with your questions. Let's see, here we go. Lindsay, do you audition students to be in jazz band? Is it interested, driven, and sign up if you, the only time I ever have auditions is when you have too many kids. And so for one time we had 4 big bands. We started off with 1 barely when I first got there, and we moved to 4 and a couple of combos. So that's the only time I had auditions, because you have too many great altos, too many good drummers. So that's a nice problem to have. How do you go about teaching your beginning students how to swing rhythms? Ooh, va, ooh, va, ooh, va, on just a major scale or a Dorian scale. And then you can apply that to moving 8th notes where they emphasize the upbeat. And listening, of course, you can't go wrong with listening. Like I said, it's a new language. My jazz band this last year was 4 kids, hoping to double this year. Suggestions on what to prioritize music for a small group. I can work with you if you want to email me privately on some of that. There are, of course, you don't want to do big band arrangements for that. You want to do smaller combo pieces. But hopefully my email is available, ronnierios@yahoo.com. I'm more than happy to give you guys suggestions. But hey, you got to start somewhere. If it's 4 kids and then you move to 8, next year will be 16. So that's great. Is there too many people in the beginner jazz band? Is there too many people in a beginner jazz band? Yes, I think so, because you don't want a front row with 16 kids. Yeah, you want to give others opportunity, but you're on a clock to get a band to sound great for your school and your community. And for those kids in your big band, everybody, that are going to go on to become directors like you, or even professional musicians, you've got to give them a big band experience, because you'll see how through time it's going to change lives positively. So you want to maybe focus on some of those kids in the symphonic or concert band, or create a second jazz ensemble. For smaller jazz groups, combos that aren't good soloists, are there flex charts that work 3-4 minutes long with limited solos? Absolutely, yes. You just need to explore. All of that stuff is out there. And what I do sometimes is I'll cut tunes. Like Bob Minter wrote this really cool bridge thing on one of his tunes, and I didn't have enough time to teach it, so I skipped it, and it was still a great tune and is well received by all the audience. What are some of your favorite sites? I go to Kendor. I go to all the big publishers, Barnhouse, 3-2 Music on the West Coast. Also, the Smart Chart Jazz that I put on there, the UNC for more sophisticated charts in Colorado. So I've even used some Dallas Jazz Orchestra charts because there's some really powerful ballads that I love them have. Thank you, Wayne. Great comment from you, sir. One of my mentors there from New Jersey. And here, probably because Wycliffe Gordon uses a big horn. Okay, that somebody answered somebody's question there. Let me get to a few of the other questions here that are on now. Let's see.
Really quick, since we're just about out of time here, I just want to draw attention to the sticky note that's at the top of your chat right now. If you guys want to have some more jazz fun, please join Tony Garcia's Soul Session tonight at 7 o'clock. The link is up there, so if you think you might want to attend, please save that. Unfortunately, it's not in your program, so just want to make sure you get that. Thank you.
And how much more time do we have, more or less?
We are technically out of time, so if you want to take maybe one more question.
I'll take one more question, and let's see. If you don't have enough kids for a full big band, what's the best way to start a combo? All you have to do is at least get a rhythm section and maybe a sax and a trumpet and a trombone. By the following year, you'll have a full ensemble. But even in the rhythm section, if you can have a bass, a drummer, and if you can have a piano, if not, use an assistant band director or the choir director. But I can tell you every school in America has some 5-year-old that started with piano lessons that's now a teenager. So you can find one of those. Guys, thank you so very much. I'm sorry I went on and on. I just wanted to give you as much info as possible to help you speed up the learning curve and not make all the boo-boos that I made through the years and that I wish I had maybe heard earlier. If I talk too fast, I apologize. I can send you this PowerPoint or if it's available. But you have been wonderful. I wish you guys all the very best of luck. Don't forget about Tony Garcia's session here tonight. It's available there in the chat. And I thank all of you for taking time out of your day to be with us here at the Conn-Selmer Institute. And hope you enjoy the rest of the sessions that are available for you and for enjoying some of the previous ones previous to this session. Thank you so very much. Reach out anytime. I wish you the very best of luck, guys, and go forward and promote this wonderful American art form of jazz. And no experience necessary, only enthusiasm and passion for the activity is all that you needed. I didn't know anything about it, and when I first started, and now I maybe know a little bit more, but enough to maybe put a group together. So I wish you all the very best of luck. Don't be afraid. It's just a new language. All you got to do is put it in your ear. Thanks so much, everybody. Take care. Have a great rest of your day.